Now I am recording it,
Okay.
and a little, yeah, a little, go a little away from the camera so that your entire face is visible.
Okay. Greetings and good wishes to all of you from South Africa. Thank you for inviting me to share my solidarity with the call for an end to nuclear weapons. 75 years ago, the world stood still as it experienced the horror of the atomic bomb. Today, we experience the horror of the coronavirus. Even today, as we did 75 years ago, we see that good health, peace, and the conservation of our planet are linked. We recall that many victims of the atom bomb died crying out for water, but all the water was contaminated. Today, many communities are crying out for access to water. Three things that Gandhiji said to us are of great significance today. So, the first one, he said, and I quote, I will give you a talisman. If you are ever in doubt, bring before your eyes the face of the poorest man you can see, and ask yourself if what you are about to do will benefit him. Then you will find your doubts and yourself melt away. This is what Gandhiji said. That was his advice. How does the possession of nuclear weapons assist the poorest of the poor? Let us consider, and I've got three issues that I would like to consider. Firstly, the amount of funds that are consumed by the manufacture of nuclear weapons can meet the basic needs of all the poor in the world. Hospitals can be built, schools can be built, houses can be built, and in doing so, work can be provided to millions of people around the world. The second issue is when a nuclear weapon is used, if ever an insane person decides to do so, the poor will be the most vulnerable and will suffer not just for that time, but for years to come. We just have to look at the devastation and after effects suffered by the Japanese and many others affected by the nuclear dust and emissions. Gandhiji wrote in the Harijan in 1938, 12th of November, and this is what he had to say. If the mad race for armaments continues, it is bound to result in a slaughter such as has never occurred in history. If there is a victor left, the very victory will be a living death for the nation that emerges victorious. This is what Gandhiji wrote in 1938. Gandhiji advocated peaceful, nonviolent means to solve conflict. But the world has not taken these words seriously. Today, over 75 years later, and after many more countries possess nuclear weapons, we are still struggling to convince the world that possession and use of nuclear weapons is immoral and a travesty against human beings and nature. In his judgment, Justice Veeramurthy describes the horror and painful, torturous death of those affected by the nuclear bomb attacks not just for a few seconds or minutes, but for generations, and not only to human beings, but also to nature and the environment. Books written by notable scientists such as A.N. Kalyandin, O.V. Bagdanov, and G.A. Vorontoff, and published by United Nations Institute for Training and Research, speak to the terrible after effects of the bomb and the enormous extent of the harm. Their book, and the name is Prevention of Nuclear War, which was published in 1983, refers to this. And the International Court of Justice declared that the threat or use of nuclear weapons would generally be contrary to the rules of international law. There exists an obligation to pursue in good faith and bring to a conclusion negotiations leading to nuclear disarmament in all its aspects under strict and effective international control. This is what the ICJ said. To his credit, President Obama was the first president of USA to visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki since the tragic happenings of 1945. And in his address, among other things, President Obama said, and I quote, "The world has changed forever after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It should be known not as the dawn of atomic warfare, but as the start of our moral awakening." Today, we see under the coronavirus situation, are we going to awaken our moral fiber, or are we going to go back to the same old strategy of violence and confrontation? On my trip to Japan some years ago, I visited and met people affected by the atom bomb in Hiroshima and saw the remains and exhibition showing the utter annihilation of a whole population and devastation of land and nature. The stories brought tears to my eyes. I visited and met people affected by the test sites in Semipalatinsk and experienced the fear of the radiation that still exists in the place. Met some of the people who are living with the after effects of the exposure to the radiation and heard the painful stories of families devastated by cancer, diseases, and death. These effects continue. No person who has seen and experienced these terrible consequences can remain unaffected. In the Tokyo Declaration, speakers affirmed that there was no simple answer to the question of war and peace, but we have to try, by whatever means we can, to strive for peaceful solutions to conflicts. Gandhiji said to a journalist when asked how he thought wars can be stopped, and his answer was, and I quote, "I have no doubt that unless big nations shed their desire for exploitation and the spirit of violence, of which war is the natural expression, an atom bomb the inevitable consequence, there is no hope for peace in the world. I hold that he who invented the atom bomb, has committed the gravest sin in the world of science. This is what Gandhiji said. So, in summary, Gandhiji made these 3 points, and I just want to repeat again that we must think of the welfare of the poorest of the poor, that we must avoid destruction of people and of the environment and of nature, and that we must have faith in human beings' ability to make peace through nonviolent means. But humankind has not heeded these strong messages by Gandhiji. And I want to quote again from Dr. Albert Einstein, who actually invented the power of the atom, even though he didn't actually manufacture the bomb. But he invented the power of atom. And on November 2nd, 1948, few months after Gandhiji's assassination, he spoke at the Indian Peace Congress. And this is what he said, and I quote, "Brutal force cannot be met successfully for any length of time with similar brutal force. Let us do whatever is within our power so that all the people of the world may accept Gandhi's gospel as their basic policy before it is too late for the world." This is what Albert Einstein said. And I want to just finish off with another quote that Albert Einstein, made in 1950, June 18, 1950, in a question and answer session in the United Nations sponsored series, which was called Pursuit of Truth. And I quote again, it's Albert Einstein's words. "The remedy doesn't lie in preparing oneself for the possibility of a future war. We must start with the conviction that security against military disaster can be realized only through patient negotiation. An armament race is the worst possible method of preventing an open conflict. On the contrary, real peace cannot be reached without systematic disarmament on a supranational scale." This is what Dr. Albert Einstein said. And on another occasion, Gandhiji said, and I quote this, "Not to believe in the possibility of permanent peace is to not believe in the godliness of human nature." Today, we appeal to that godliness in human nature to emerge in all of us, so as to see the diabolical nature of nuclear weapons and do all we can to eliminate the roots of conflicts through the more ingenious use of public funds in the interest of the community rather than in manufacture of nuclear weapons. I thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I hope that things will change. Let us heed the coronavirus and make a difference to a new normal, a new thinking. Thank you. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Raji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And please take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Sure. That's it. I'm closing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have a
Okay.
wonderful evening.
And you too. Bye bye.